Welcome back to artofdino.com and saveearth.us. I recently came across this amazing article from the North Carolinian, December 21st, the solstice, 1839. And this is a great article called Discoveries on the Muskingum in Ohio. And again, this is another one of those stories that makes you think a few different things about the ancient past of America, mainly being that this place was definitely inhabited by some amazing people far before the Americans, the British, the French, the Spanish, and all of them. Even there was a whole nother realm of existence here that they tried to erase from history, but there are little pockets in the newspapers and various other reasons that are sliding through the cracks and making themselves known. And it's leaning more and more towards like this place, America, had an ancient Hindu past, an ancient Buddhist, Tibetan, Tartarian past, and Chinese past as well. And when you think about it, and when you go back in time and they try to convince you that, the first people to sail here were Columbus and them, in massive ships, massive elaborate ships. So the whole world was making amazing ships of all different kinds of caliber for thousands of years, and no one stumbled across this massive continent. It's the stupidest thing imaginable to believe any of that. But more and more I'm beginning to realize that they probably called these people Indians because they had a reference to India. They used to always say that. People used to always get confused, and I remember in school they'd be like, no, this is the Native Americans. They're different Indians than the other ones, and Columbus was looking for the Indies, but he didn't, blah, blah, blah. I think the main take out of that is that this place was inhabited by Indian descendants from India at one point. And if you think about it, not only were the Indians great shipbuilders, like all the people of the Orient, but they also potentially, most definitely had vimanas and other flying devices. And there is no way, and so many other things, dirigibles from other places too, but they definitely had vimanas, and there's no way that those puppies were just staying in one spot and were not used to travel around the realm. I think they definitely were, and they would probably strike the continent of America at some point, since it's absolutely disgustingly massive compared to many of the places they found, like in the Pacific and all these other tiny islands that they found, but yet they didn't find a massive continent. It's so foolish. But either way, this article shows, and the finds that this person found in the Ohio Valley when digging underground are very suspicious of both of these things. Very kind of convincing that the people that were here a long time ago, buried under us, are Indian and Oriental, Tartarian, Asian, and all of that stuff. And the world was all connected. All of these things point to each other when you go down under the ground and you find these relics that have specific things for this evidence, proving this evidence in this connection. So I want you to check this out because this is a great article, and stay to it for the end because the last paragraph is possibly the best, and the last sentence is really the nail in the coffin. So here we go. Discoveries on the Muskingum. In the neighborhood of Fort Harmer on the Muskingum, opposite Marietta on the Ohio, were discovered by Mr. Ashe, an English traveler, in the year 1826, several monuments of the ancient nations. So again, we'd have to check out Fort Harmer. I'll try if I can dig up a picture of that. But Ohio, all that whole area, the copper, the Great Lakes, everything like that, there was something amazing there, a massive civilization, no doubt, right under us. And then some point, some form of I don't know, I wouldn't want to call it colonizer, but some form of controller just dumped a bunch of dirt, or some flood happened, or whether it's controlled and intentional or an act of nature and God, I am not sure, but something happened and covered, intentionally or unintentionally or naturally, these past civilizations. So let's keep going here. Having made, says this traveler, arrangements for an absence of a few days from the fort, I provided myself with an excellent tinderbox, some biscuit and salt, and arming my Indian traveling companion with a good axe and rifle, taking myself a good fowling piece, often tried in my faithful dog, I crossed the ferry of the Muskingum, having learned that the left-hand side of that river was most accessible and the most abundant in curiosities and other objects of my research. In another part of this work, we shall describe works of a similar sort on the opposite side of the Muskingum, as given by the Antiquarian Society of Ohio. On traversing the valley between Fort Harmer and the mountains, I determined to take the high grounds, and after some difficulty, ascended an eminence which commanded a view of the town of Marietta and of the river up and down, displaying a great distance along the narrow valley of the Ohio, cultivated plains and gardens and popular walks of that beautiful town. After a very short inspection and cursory examination, it was evident that the very spot or eminence on which I stood had been occupied by the Indians, either as a place of observation or a stronghold. The exact summit of the hill I found to be artificial. It expressed an oval 45 feet by 23 and was composed apparently of earth and stone, though no stone of a similar character appeared in that place. So again, if you consider America to be, at one point before it was destroyed and covered with dirt, to be similar to Europe, then you can trust that at some point in time, people were using the rivers as a main roads of navigation, basically as the highways of civilization. And right along all of our highways, and the same as all their rivers in other places, there's a lot of different buildings and structures and necessary things that travelers would need. So if you find a river, chances are there's a lot of stuff around it, especially if it is a very old and natural one. He continues and says, the base of the whole was girded round about by a wall of earth in a state of too great decay to justify any calculation, and the whole was so covered with heavy timber that I despaired of gaining any further knowledge, and would have left the place, had I not been detained by my Indian companion, whom I saw occupied in endeavoring to introduce a pole into a small opening between two flat stones, near the root of a tree that grew on the very summit of this eminence. The stones we found were too heavy to be removed by the mere power of hands. 2 good oak poles were cut in lieu of levers and crows. Clapping these into the orifice first discovered, we weighed a large flat stone, tilting it over when we each assumed a guarded position, in silent expectation of hearing the hissing of serpents or the rustling of the groundhog's litter where the Indian had supposed was a den of one sort or the other. All was silent. We resumed our labor, casting out a number of stones, leaves, and earth, soon clearing a surface of 7 feet by 5, which had been covered upwards of 15 inches deep with flat stones, principally lying against each other, with their edges turned to the horizon. On the surface we had cleared appeared another difficulty, which was a plain superficie, composed of 3 flat stones of such apparent magnitude that the Indian began to think that we should find under them neither snake nor pig, but having once begun, I was not to be diverted from my task. Stimulated by obstructions and animated with other views than those of my companion, I had made a couple of hickory shovels with the axe, and setting to work soon undermined the surface and slid the stones off one on one side and laid the space open to view. I expected to find a cavern. My imagination was warmed by a certain design I thought I discovered from the very beginning. The manner the stones were placed led me to conceive the existence of a vault filled with the riches of antiquity and crowded with the treasures of the most ancient world. A bed of sand was all that appeared under these flat stones, which I cast off, and as I knew, there was no sand nearer than the bed of the muskingum. As design was therefore the more manifest, which encouraged my proceeding, the sand was about a foot deep, which I soon removed. The design and labor of man was now unequivocal. The space out of which these materials were taken left a hollow in an oblong square, lined with stones on the end and sides, and also paved on what appeared to be the bottom with square stones of about 9 inches diameter. So clearly something that was once amazing and handmade. I picked these up with the nicest care and again came to a bed of sand, which, when removed, made the vault about 3 feet deep, presenting another bottom or surface, composed of small square-cut stones fitted with such art that I had much difficulty in discovering many of the places where they met. These displaced, I came to a substance which, on the most critical examination, I judged to be a mat or mats in a state of entire decomposition and decay. My reverence and care increased with the progress already made. I took up this impalpable powder with my hands and fanned off the remaining dust with my hat, when there appeared a beautiful tessellated pavement of small colored stones, the colors arranged in such a manner as to express harmony and shades, and portraying at full length the figure of a warrior, under whose feet a snake was exhibited in ample folds. So was this one of the people that beat the snake, one of the warriors that beat the civilization that was defined by the snake? that seems to have taken over again in this modern era, but who knows? Again, though, finding a mural like that, pretty much a mosaic mural of tiny stones under this thing, along the river, atop of, underneath all these stones, unbelievable. In the layers of sand, makes me wonder if those were at once some sandstone carvings or some type of sandstone thing, kind of that inevitably melted and crushed, or is it like nowadays when someone pukes on the floor or something like that, something you want to get rid of, you throw a bunch of sand on it, and then it covers it up, and you can build on top of it and just keep going. You just pile sand on it. So I wonder if that was part of their, the controller's fill process at one point after they destroyed stuff. Just dump a layer of sand on it. Seems a little far-fetched, and most likely is, but again, who knows? There is this. I wish you could see pictures of what this guy was doing as you could do it. So as he was doing it, so you could see some of these things. But again, 1830s, wild time. So the body of the figures was composed of dyed woods, bones, and a variety of small bits of terrous and testaceous substances, most of which crumbled into dust on being removed and exposed to the open air. My regret and disappointment were very great, as I had flattered myself that the whole was stone and capable of being taken up and preserved. Little more, however, than the actual pavement could be preserved, which was composed of flat stones 1 inch deep and 2 inches square. The prevailing colors were white, green, dark blue, and pale spotted red, all of which are peculiar to the lakes and not to be had nearer than about 300 miles. Again, this place was amazingly well connected, built up everywhere, then somehow destroyed. The hole, or the wheel, it says, was affixed in a thin layer of sand, fitted together with great precision and covered by a piece of bark in great decay, whose removal exposed what I was fully prepared to discover, from all previous indications, the remains of a human skeleton, which was of an uncommon magnitude, being 7 feet in length. With the skeleton was found, first, an earthen vessel or urn, in which were several bones and some white sediment. I wonder what that was. And here we go for the final paragraph. Wow, so cool. I would love to be around during this time of discovery. The urn appeared to be made of sand and flint vitrified and wrung when struck, like glass, and held about 2 gallons, had a top or cover of the same material, and resisted fire as completely as iron or brass. Second, a stone axe with a groove round the pole, by which it had been fastened with a withe to the handle. Third, 24 arrow points made of flint and bone, and lying in a position which showed they belonged to a quiver. Fourth, a quantity of beads, but not of glass, round, oval, and square, colored green, black, white, blue, and yellow. Fifth, a very large conch shell, decomposed into a substance like chalk. This shell was 14 inches long and 23 in circumference. The Hindu priests at the present time use this sort of shell as sacred, and I'm sure the ancient ones did as well. And that is one of the connections there. Although it's a shell, so you can't really totally claim that, but if it has a purpose, and it's kind of connected in this type of ritual kind of deathy mode or space and atmosphere, then maybe it is a worthy connection. So it is blown to announce the celebration of religious festivals. Sixth, under a heap of dust and tennis shreds of feathered cloth and hair, a parcel of brass rings, cut out of a solid piece of metal, already very impressive, and in such a manner that the rings were suspended from each other, without the aid of solder or any other visible agency whatever. Which makes me, again, point to the Indians. I've seen some stuff like this before, and they have all kinds of different things, as well as the Buddhists and Tibetans. But this almost seems like a magnetism of some sort was being used, which is also very cool. And if it kind of, again, like the Vimana technology, that invisible technology, them using these things and harnessing the powers of magnetism in the ether to do things that nowadays we still can't really figure out, or we're not utilizing at least. We can figure it out maybe, but we're not utilizing it the way they did. And I wish we could, but that is amazing. Solid piece of metal, again, that's incredible. Cut rings, cut out of a solid piece of metal and in such a manner that the rings were suspended from each other, without the aid of solder or any other visible agency whatever. Very impressive. And then last but not least, each ring was 3 inches in diameter, and the bar of the rings a half an inch thick, and were square. A variety of characters were deeply engraved on the sides of the rings, resembling the Chinese characters. Tartarians. So again, wow, that's quite a way to end. And there's no mistaking the Chinese characters. Like when you see Chinese characters, that's them, and they're very unique and very easy to tell. And again, digging under in the Ohio in the 1830s, digging under a bunch of rocks alongside a river and finding what appears to be a Hinduish Tibetan Tartarian priest's burial of 7 feet plus. And again, combining that, even just factoring that in, this is a 7-foot tall person with Chinese characters, and you see the people of stock nowadays, and the Chinese that aren't really 7 feet tall very much, except like Yao Ming and a few. But again, it's just so much. It's as if it's as if everything we've been told was a lie. In this place, America, during the time when it was kind of blocked out of history and eradicated from history, must have been the time they were destroying the old civilization and grooming it for the next one. And in order to do that, you must have to do so much work I can't even imagine. Maybe they hire off-realm crews that just go into new realms and do this. And they're masters of it, because whoever did it did a great job. And they make the things that are underground so far underground. The controllers, they hide it under everything, under houses, rows and rows of houses in all different cities, all over England, all over everywhere. You just stacked on top of foundations that are ancient so that nobody digs, because no one's going to dig up their house and look for more things. Same with cemeteries, same with golf courses. They know the drill. They've been doing it for a long time, and whoever are the people that are in charge of this destruction, it almost seems definitely, again, way more of a strategic thing than it was a natural event that just caused all this chaos. It seems like, I don't know what they did to these things. Like if after this article came out, if this place was raided and all these things were discovered and taken by the Smithsonian or so not, which was actually just getting started around this time and not even around in 1826. So there's no telling again. And if you're from Ohio and you live near here, definitely give a shout out, see if there's anything new that's shown up here. And if there's any news you can add to any of this story, then that would be great. But wow, again, I just can't wait till someone in the modern era, again, finds one of these things. Like they couldn't, I'd like to believe that they didn't in the 1800s and 1900s when they were controlling everything, that they didn't find just about everything. And nowadays, it would be nice to find an amazing vault of treasure from this, pointing to this ancient India, and Tartarian Tibetan Buddhist roots that would be, could go viral immediately, that they couldn't stop. Like someone that, if the footage goes out now, if someone found this stuff in America, it would go like wildfire. It wouldn't be just an article in a paper that I'm discovering 170 years later and a few other people are seeing. It would be, it would spread rapidly, and it would totally change things in a great way. That's what we need. We need to find a discovery underneath that blows the lid off of this, and then we need to just promote it with such vigor that just history is forced to accommodate it. And that would be really great. It's probably a pipe dream, but it would be a lot of fun, and I hope it happens during our lifetime, because we need the truth to come out. And I don't care who was here first. It doesn't matter if they're Asian, they're Tartarian, or anything. I don't care. I just want to know. Because once we know, we can do a lot more, and we can just go by a real history instead of this fairy tale garbage that we clearly are proving false. Every day, all of us together in this community prove more and more elements of it to be absolute garbage. So let's keep doing that until the wave crashes and they have to revise everything. And then archaeology will take another step forward, and I want to be on one of these teams with all you guys, digging this stuff up, finding it, cataloging it, piecing it all together for the future generations to know where they came from and who was here first and what we are capable of and where we need to explore next, beyond the realms, beyond the poles, everywhere. Hope you all enjoyed this little glimpse into the past, and thank you very much for checking it out. Share it with whoever, and check out artofdino.com and saveearth.us. Bless you all.